Hello, welcome to Alchemy Animation. It is a 13th part of a series called The Invisible Princess is Bored Again Today. Let's begin. Caesar was laying on his bed, and Helena came close to him and thinking that he is deep asleep. Even his breathing looks stable right now. She was sitting beside him and thinking that he's gotten so gaunt. Is he not eating properly? But then suddenly she realized he may have a lot of work to do, but it's strange that he suddenly lost so much weight. She grabbed his hand and thinking that, I'm sorry Caesar, if I should be by your side this would not have happened. And then she kissed on his hand. Suddenly Caesar made a sound. Helena was thinking that he has a fever, so these clothes are totally inadequate, he will catch cold. She noticed something on his chest. She was thinking that what are these bruises all over him? She became angry and said there is no way someone hit him in that spot. She unbuttoned his shirt and thinking that nearly all of his torso is covered in bruises. Could it be poison? Caesar put his hand on her cheek and said, Sword Master, did you come to visit me? She startled and said, How long have you been awake? And then she nodded and said, Anyway, yes, it's my duty as your instructor to visit you. He stood up and said, A surprise visit? A surprise visit from you in this get-up, I'm happy. And then he hugged her and again laying on the bed. He said, I wish I would stay like this forever. He was squeezing her very softly. She closed her eyes and said, I will stay with you for now, so go to sleep. He said, Okay, don't go, stay with me forever. And then after a while she stood up and thinking that he's finally asleep, she said, Don't be sick, Caesar. Whatever happens, I will protect you. She came outside of the room. Joseph was also standing outside with Leonard. Joseph asked, My lady, how did you get in here? Helena said, Be quiet, I figured it out. Leonard asked, What? She said he didn't suddenly fell ill. He is showing signs of poisoning. After hearing these, both Leonard and Joseph were shocked. Their heartbeat was escaped for a moment. Helena said he's been poisoned, and it has been done in tiny amounts, very meticulously so that it would not be noticeable. Joseph said, But we checked everything he eats, so how? Helena said there must have been a way to do it without being seen, and the bruises have spread from behind the neck all the way to his chest. She tightened her fist and said it's not a common reaction, so I don't think the poison is one that grows on our continent. Leonard was thinking about it and said, A poison that's not from our continent, it must be connected to House Horio. Helena said, I'm sure there is a connection. She was thinking that, after all, the most plausible suspect is House Valera. She said, For the time being, be careful, does not reveal it in public. Until we catch the culprit, we have to act like nothing has happened. After a while Helena came back to the palace where Agat is. Agat said, My lady, I'm done rearranging your clothes. Helena said, Okay, thanks. Agat asked, Is something the matter? Helena replied, I'm fine. Agat said, I don't think you are fine. However, Helena pushed her and said, Okay, now that you are done, shall we return to the estate? Agat said, My lady. But then suddenly someone came towards them and said, My lady, it was Ulika. She said, Helena, I had to see you urgently before you left the palace. I need to ask you, are you available tomorrow by any chance? I would like to chat with you over tea, just the two of us. Helena was looking at her very sharply and thinking that she wants to suddenly have tea with me. She asked, Why do you want to see me? In a flustered state, Ulika said, It's not because I'm plotting anything. She was squeezing her hands and said, It's just, there's something I must tell you. Helena said, Very well. However, I get to decide where we meet. That's okay, right? Ulika said, Of course. With a smile, Helena said, Tomorrow at noon in the annex of the Feresca estate. Ulika bowed in front of her and said, I will then see you tomorrow. When Yulika left, Helena said, "Agat, can you run an errand for me? Go tell the Viscount Joseph about my schedule tomorrow." Agat said, "Yes, my lady." And then the next day at the Feresca Card Ducal estate, Joseph was standing with Helena. He asked, "Why are you leaving the window open, my lady?" Helena replied, "I want the room to be visible from the outside just in case." Joseph said, "You are very thorough." She asked, "Where are Caesar guards? I mean His Majesty's guard." Joseph said, "I have them on standby in the next room. If something happens, they will hurry over here at once." Helena said, "Very good." And then she looked towards the teapot and said, "We will not be serving the refreshments beforehand. And I also don't want anyone touching the food that Lady Yulika brings." Joseph asked, "But why?" Helena replied, "If the family that used poison was House Valera, then they might use it today as well." Joseph said, "You're leaving room for doubt on purpose. But what if you end up consuming poison?" She smiled and said, "I will be fine. I know how to detect poison to a certain extent." She said, "There is an even more important reason. I can't be the one who gets framed. Because if poison is found in Yulika's tea, then I will be considered the main suspect. If that happens, they may also blame me and my family for the illness His Majesty is suffering from right now." She said, "After all, I have a pretty plausible motive. They could say that I poisoned Yulika out of jealousy and rage, so not lay a single finger on the refreshment." Joseph said, "Very well, my lady." She smiled and said, "Please don't be too worried." The maid knocked on the door and said, "Lady Yulika has arrived, my lady. Shall I escort her here?" Helena said, "Yes, but before you do, clear the table." Joseph said, "Then I will be on standby in the next room." Helena was checking everything again and thinking that everything is ready. After a while, Lady Yulika entered into the room and said, "Hello, my lady." Helena said, "Welcome, Lady Yulika." She was thinking that, "I will find out what kind of scheme you have up your sleeve." Helena said, "Take a seat over here, my lady." However, Yulika was hesitating a bit because of earlier incident. She said, "Thank you for inviting me," and then she sat down on the sofa. Helena said, "Let's get straight to the point." She asked, "Why don't you tell me what this is about? You said there was something you wished to tell me." In a hesitant state, Yulika said, "I just wanted to clear up the misunderstanding between us." Helena said, "Is that so? Was there even a misunderstanding to clear up between us?" While clenching her clothes, Yulika said, "I know I have done wrong, but please give me a chance to explain." But then suddenly someone knocked on the door. The person said, "My lady, I'm here to serve the refreshments that Lady Yulika brought. May I come in?" Yulika said, "Yes, come in." She said, "I wanted to serve you a specialty, my lady, that's it." Helena was thinking that this is a scent I have never encountered before. She asked, "What kind of tea is this?" Yulika replied, "It's a flower tea made from a bloom in the rose family." Helena took a sip and said, "A flower tea." But then suddenly she posed and then smiled. She stood up and removed the teapot cover. In a flustered state, Yulika asked, "My lady, what happened?" Helena looked at the tea and the flower. She said, "I knew it." She said, "If anyone is out there, come inside." And then someone came inside and said, "Yes, my lady, you summoned me." Helena said, "Take this to Viscount Joseph at once." Yulika was totally confused. She said, "What? Why are you suddenly doing this, my lady?" Helena said, "Were you truly unaware, Lady Yulika? This tea is poisonous." Yulika was shocked after hearing this. With a sweaty face she said, "Poisonous? I was drinking this tea as well, after receiving it as a gift from the Empress Dowager, and it did not do anything to me. You can clearly see that I'm still alive. So why are you saying this?" And then Yulika shouted, "More importantly, why would the Empress Dowager try to kill me?" Helena said, "I don't know. Who knows if the Empress Dowager was trying to kill you or if you were trying to kill me?" After hearing this, Yulika froze on her position. She said, "What? I have no such intention." With a sharp look, Helena looked towards her and said, "That's something we will find out when the Viscount gets here." And then Joseph entered with someone. He said, "I have brought someone who is capable of identifying poison, my lady. And that person is Duke Carmel." Yulika instantly recognized him and said, "Duke, the Duke said I should like to verify this once more with both of you." He took the flower in a jar and asked, "Is this the flower that you, Lady Yulika, brought?" Yulika said, "Yes, it is." In a wavering voice she asked, "It's not poisonous, right? It's just an ordinary flower, isn't it?" The Duke said, "Lady Yulika, this is belladonna. It is a toxin that can be fatal if you consume it to a certain level in the body." After hearing this, the world fell apart for Yulika. She said, "Pardon, that can't be, no?" She looked towards Helena and said, "There must be some kind of misunderstanding." The Duke said, "Even if that's the case, you will have to come with us since we have evidence." Yulika asked, "Go where?" The Duke said, "We have no choice but to proceed in this manner until your innocence is proven, so I hope you will understand." He ordered some of the guards and said, "Escort her." One of the knight came and grabbed her hand. He said, "Yes, your grace." Yulika was shouting, "Wait, your grace. I did not know it was poison, it's the truth." Helena was standing quietly and looking at her. After a while, Helena was thinking that Yulika is now in custody. She probably believed that the Empress Dowager would protect her, and that the Empress Dowager would not discard House Brandt. But the Empress Dowager casted Yulika aside, and she made it seem like Yulika planned it all on her own and thoroughly removed herself from the situation. When Yulika realized that she had been thrown away like the most worthless piece of trash, she finally spoke up. Yulika said, "The Empress Dowager gave me that poison, and I can prove it." She said that the Empress even personally wrote down the instructions on how to sweep the floors to drink it as tea. In the recipe she wrote that, when you steep the floor in this manner, the aroma grows stronger and the flavor becomes more vibrant. Yulika said that note written by her is in her drawer in her room. At Brand Palace, Helena found that letter. She was thinking that I found it. Here is the evidence I can use to launch an attack on the Empress Dowager. After a while at the night at Empress Dowager's palace, the Emperor Caesar is standing with some knights and guard. He said, "Proceed inside, everyone." In the palace all of the maids were shouting. One of them said, "What do you think you are doing? What is this show of disrespect at the Empress Dowager's residence? How could you soil your mother's dwelling with those muddy boots?" After hearing this, Caesar said, "What, mother?" Helena came in front and said, "Mother, you say? That mother just tried to poison her own son." The Empress came and said, "There must be a serious misunderstanding, Your Majesty. I have essentially been banished to the back room. So what could I possibly know? I don't know anything about this matter." Caesar took a deep breath and asked, "How could you have no idea about something that was done by House Valera?" The Empress said, "What would people say if you punish your mother when there is no evidence of my wrongdoing? Do not establish yourself as a tyrant, Your Majesty." Caesar said, "It sounds like you are asking me for mercy." The Empress said that you should not be angry at an innocent individual, and then after hearing this reply, Helena knew that it's going to happen. She took out a letter and said, "You say you are innocent, Your Majesty. Then do you know what this note is?" After seeing it, the Empress was shocked. She said, "That's..." And then she stopped. Helena was thinking that it is a note written by the Empress Dowager's hand, a sheet filled with such ordinary and trifling information. She probably had no idea Yulika had saved this scrap of paper as if it were something precious. With a sharp look, Helena asked, "Will you continue to deny it in the face of this evidence?" Helena was thinking that the game is over and the victory is mine. After some days, Helena was thinking that everything promptly resolved, and my father had an advisory council to discuss depriving House Valera of its title and ousting Marianne from her position. Marianne, who was now become the former Empress Dowager. She was now ordered to be exiled to the north. The Empress was locked up. She was saying that this can't be happening? How could it happen? And as for Commander Horio of the Ivory Knights, his assets were confiscated. He gave up his position as the commander. In the Imperial Palace at the Red Knights training yard, the commander was talking to Helena. In a happy mood, he said, "Not having to see that bastard Horio feels great." Helena said, "You really do seem to be in a great mood." The commander replied, "Of course. All the frustrating issues that had plagued us recently have been resolved. But come to think of it, how did things go on your end? With Lady Yulika, I mean." He asked, "Has her engagement to His Majesty been called off?" Helena said, "Yes, it has. She visited me recently and told me about it." At that time Yulika said, "His Majesty said I would not be punished, and you asked him to do that, did not you?" She bowed in front of Helena and said, "Thank you, my lady." Helena replied, "Well, it was because of you that we were able to get the Empress Dowager." She asked, "Will you be leaving the capital and returning to the Brandt estate?" With a smile Yulika replied, "No, I have also been disowned." Yulika said, "My lady, I came to see you today because I wanted to apologize before I left. I'm sorry for the things I have done all this time." With a smile she said, "Thank you for everything." At the current time Helena is looking at the sky and said, "She's changed a lot." But then suddenly someone was shouting, "You can't go in there." The person said, "I already said that I'm not anyone suspicious." The commander and Helena look at that person. Helena asked, "What's all this commotion about?" The commander said, "You over there? What's happening?" The person said, "My name is Roman, I am a mage, and I'm here to tell you about a mage who is not registered in the guild." After hearing this Helena was shocked. She was thinking that, wait, a mage that is not registered in the guild? She was thinking about Noah. She asked, "Do you know the name of this mage?" With a tear in his eye he said, "His name is Noah." He asked, "Do you know him by any chance?" Helena said, "Guards, he will be coming with me." After a while he was sitting with Helena at the dining table. He was eating the delicious delicacies. While eating, the person said, "This sure is renowned house, all right. All the food is amazing." Helena asked, "You said your name is Roman, right?" He replied, "Yes, that's correct." She asked, "What is it that you want to tell me about the mage named Noah?" He said, "Yes, I understand he's someone who met with the former Empress Dowager. However, there is no one with that name in the guild at present." He took out something from his robe and said, "So I combed through hundreds of years of rosters, and found that name on a roster from 500 years ago. It's Noah Ravel. There was a mage who caused an immense magic spell when the evil dragon was being sealed. And Noah was that mage lover." After hearing all of this story, Helena was shocked. She asked, "So are you saying this man is from 500 years ago?" The man replied, "He also became a problematic individual due to a dreadful deed he committed." She asked, "Tell me, what did he do?" He replied, "That man did something forbidden." He put down the book on the table and said, "It was something strictly prohibited even in the days when magic flourished. And that thing is he brought dead person back to life." After hearing this, Helena was even more shocked. Her heartbeat was skipped for a moment. He said the record stated that he died after the spell failed. However, someone with his name entered the palace, so this is a matter I must look into. After saying this, there was a silence for a moment. The man said the person that Noah tried to revive was his mage lover? That's what I thought as well, but there is something odd when you look at the files. He went beyond reviving a dead person and cast a spell that causes a person's rebirth. As Helena came to know more about this story, she drowning deep inside the shock. She was thinking that a spell that brings about a person's rebirth. I was also born with memories of my previous life intact. Noah Ravel told me in tears that he had been waiting for me. I am involved in some way with that forbidden reincarnation magic. She tightened her fist and said, Roman, let's share what we know with each other, and we must capture Noah Ravel at all cost. On the next day she was in the garden, and drinking a tea with some dessert. She was totally lost in earlier conversation. She was thinking that if what he told me is true, it means the reason I was born was to be used by someone. But when I think of it that way, it feels a bit hopeless. Caesar said, what are you thinking so hard about with me in front of you? In a sudden moment she replied, just this and that. Caesar asked, you are thinking about the Church of Draco again, are not you? She asked, how did you know? He replied, that's the only problem that remains for you now. She replied, this is not fair. Only my concerns have been uncovered. What about you? Is there anything bothering you lately? With a blushy face and a bit hesitant he replied, there is something on my mind. It's the thought of wanting to marry you. After hearing this, Helena was surprised and said, what? He replied, now that you have returned to my side once more, I want to make sure of it this time. I wish we could have a wedding right now, but it should be better to do it after your problem has been resolved, right? She replied, that's true, and then in full of energy Caesar stood up and said, then let's start by holding an engagement ceremony soon. She asked, isn't there something else that needs to be done first? He asked, what? She came close to him and sit down on her knees, and then she took his hand and asked, Your Majesty the Emperor Caesar Wintergrey, will you marry me? After hearing this his temperature rised and his face became totally red. He said, this isn't right, I was going to propose to you first. She said, too bad I did it first, and then she asked, so what's your answer? He squeezed her hand and said, my answer is way too obvious. Both of them came close to each other and Caesar said, Helena Fresca, I have always been waiting for you. And then few days passes and the day of the engagement arrived. Both Caesar and Helena were ready. Caesar asked, did you memorize the parade route right? She said, oh, Your Majesty. She pointed at something on the document, and in the document it was written that a bow has been prepared for the archer. She asked, what is this archer for? He replied, a huge flower basket is going to be installed on the central pillar of the square, and when the archer shoots an arrow into the basket, the flowers will tumble down into the square. Helena said, it sounds beautiful. He replied, there is nothing more beautiful than you today, Helena. He hugged her from back and said, it feels like a dream, that I am finally announcing to the world today that you are mine. In a happy mood she asked, even though it's just an engagement ceremony? He replied, I mean we are going to get married too. But then someone came and it's Leonard. He said, apologies for interrupting you two while you are so busy, but I have something to report. After seeing her brother, her face become totally blushy. She was thinking that what was Leonard watching this whole time? Leonard said there will be a solar eclipse in the afternoon, and the important rites will be over by then, but I felt you should still be aware. Caesar hugged Helena very tightly and said, why of all days, eclipse happening on the day of our engagement? He said, it makes me feel so uneasy. Helena replied, it will be brief, so just grin and bear it for a little bit. And everyone has already gathered to watch the ceremony, so should not it end pretty quickly? But then suddenly she noticed someone, and thinking that wait a minute, could it be Noah? He was also looking at her. Caesar asked Helena what's wrong. She was thinking that, damn it, I got careless because we dealt with the Empress without any problems. What kind of trick is he trying to pull? The Empress was also present in the party. She said magic is a truly miraculous thing. It effortlessly released me from my confinement in the north. She took out the sword and said, I will make sure you regret showing me mercy. And then she killed someone. There is blood all over that place. In a demonic voice she said, Helena Feresca, you took everything that was mine, so I will ensure that nothing remains for you as well. And then she sacrificed a person above the magic circle, and monsters came out from that magic circle. She was very happy and laughing in a demonic voice. She shouted, it's a monster. All of the guests were running and shouting for help. The people were shouting she summoned a monster almost by killing someone. Caesar looked towards Leonard and said, send the Imperial Guards to prevent the monsters from leaving the square. Leonard said, yes, Your Majesty. Helena was looking at them and thinking that, I need a strategy before making a move. I would not be able to obtain a weapon immediately. But then someone came from behind and shouted, my lady. Helena looked towards her and said, Agat? Agat was holding 2 swords and gauntlet. She said, I heard screams, so I brought your swords and gauntlets. Helena took the swords and said, thanks, Agat. The mage Roman also came from the balcony. He shouted, my lady, I'm here as well. Helena asked Roman, how do we destroy that magic circle? He said, you have to get rid of the person who activated the circle. After hearing this, Helena ripped her clothes so that she can move freely. With a sweaty face, Caesar said, Helena, your dress? She wore the gauntlets, and said, I have no choice because I need to sprint. I'm sure Rowena will give me an earful about it though. And then she said, okay, it's time to go. The Empress was riding on the dragon. She was shouting, all right, you two, where are you two hiding? If you don't show yourselves, I will probably trade the entire building. Helena was looking at her and thinking that she's finally in range. I had no idea that I should be using the bow and tent for the flower basket for this instead. She took the position and aimed the arrow, and then she shot her. She was about to fall, but then suddenly she grabbed a gemstone and said, Helena Feresca's name. Suddenly the dragon grabbed Helena by the tail. Caesar was shouting, and then she fell unconscious. After a while she was trying to move her fingers and she opened her eyes. While touching her head she was thinking that, it is hurting, where am I? And then she noticed a woman was sitting on the chair. The woman said, hello, it's been a while. Helena was shocked and thinking that it's me, but something is different. She realized, no, now that I'm seeing her up close, something is definitely different. The women said, this is where I have been asleep for the past 500 years. Helena asked, so what you're saying is that you have been living in my subconscious this whole time? While closing her eyes, the woman replied, coexistence is not all that bad, human. Think about the boring life you have lived until now. If you have greater power at your disposal, you don't have to live that way. I can give you that power. Helena was looking at her hand. The women asked, what do you say, human? Will you coexist with me? While tightening her fist, Helena asked, is this my subconscious that does whatever I imagine come true? For example, a sword to kill you, and then suddenly a sword appears. She take her position and said, it seems it is same as what I thought. I can kill you, and then in a fast speed she pairs her heart. With a smile Helena said, I don't need greater power and I don't find life boring anymore. Suddenly the darkness emerges. She opened her eyes and Caesar was standing beside her. In a worried state he asked, Helena, are you alright? He grabbed her hand. She said, Caesar. With a crying and weak voice he replied, I thought you should never wake up again, and I will live alone. She asked, was I asleep for a long time? He replied, yes, you have not woken up since that day. She asked, that day you mean the day I shot the dragon with an arrow? Was I asleep for that long? She asked, what about after that? What happened? Is everyone safe? Caesar replied, they are, so don't worry. He said, Marianne, who was on the dragon, and she died on the spot. We caught the mage named Noah, but he died even before we got to lock him up in prison. He was completely emaciated. It must have been an after effect of the magic. Helena was thinking that it's finally over, all of it. With a crying face he grabbed her hand and he was too much worried about her. She asked, what do we do? Our engagement ceremony got ruined. He said, don't worry about that. We can have 100,000 engagement ceremony. After hearing this she paused for a moment and said, you want to go through that tedious complicated thing 100 times. He grabbed the back of her neck and said, Helena, if I can announce to the world that you are my person, my beloved, then I will gladly go through it many, many times. She smiled and said, yes, I would, and then both of them started to kiss each other very passionately. Helena was thinking that Kruzak the dragon, who had been living in my subconscious, probably was not aware. And on the other side someone was rushing towards her room. It was Agat. She opened the door with a crying face and shouted, my lady. She hugged her very tightly, and Helena was thinking that the dragon did not know that life doesn't bore me anymore, and it's thanks to the people I love. And then few days passed by. She was thinking that it did not take too long for my body to recover. It was not like I should suffered a severe injury in the first place. I was just have been consumed by my subconsciousness for a bit. My body quickly returned to its former state, and it seemed like the palace was slowly finding peace again. With a peaceful everyday life, there was just one problem that I was experiencing. It's Caesar's annoying overprotectiveness. In the room, Caesar was laying on the bed. He asked, why are you so late? I have been waiting for you. With a blushy face, Helena said, okay, I got it. So could you please close your robe? With a bright smile he looked towards her and moved his hand in front of her. He asked, why are you so shy? We are practically a married couple. Come over here, Helena. When she moved her hand forward he grabbed her and pulled her towards him. She was laying above Caesar. He started to kiss her hand and started to touch her body. He said, I like your hair, the slight coldness of your body, your sparkling nails, I like them all. And I especially love the fact that you have calluses on your arm. I also like your firm back waist, I love them all. She was totally red due to the shyness. He came above her and said, you are all mine. She touched the back of his neck and said, you are mine too, Caesar, you're mine, your body, everything, and then they did it. On the next day in the morning she opened her eyes. Caesar was looking at her and asked, are you awake? She covered her body and said, and whose fault is that? He asked, yes, whose fault is it? She was thinking that, why, you little? This rascal is getting sleepier by the day. Caesar said, I have been thinking while you were asleep. I wanted to tell the whole world that you are mine, but our engagement ceremony was ruined. Let's have another ceremony, but this time let's make it official with the wedding. Helena was looking at his smiley face and she was thinking that, even then, after a few days, Helena was thinking that I thought he was joking at that time, but a simple wedding ceremony inside the palace. With each step I took towards Caesar, the present moment that I was leaving became clearer than ever before. He came into my monotonous life like a miracle, and I'm looking forward to the light I will build with this man. Even when we don't say a word, we know what the other is thinking. I will be with you for the rest of my life, No matter who I become, I will give you everything that I have. So I hope you will stay by my side forever." And then both of them kissed each other. While looking at him, she was thinking that, "Please promise me that you will always remain within my reach." And that's how this lovely story ends. So, this is the happy end of the series. If you want to see more interesting story like this, then like and subscribe our YouTube channel.